Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. At this time, please turn off all electronic devices. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Raymond Arroyo.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name's John Highbush, and I have the honor of being the executive director of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute. Thank you all so much for coming this evening. In honor of our men and women around the world who defend our freedom in our uniform, would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. Please be seated. Well, Merry Christmas to all. I know it's only October 18th, but this evening we welcome the author of a new book for the holiday season, and not just any book, mind you. Rather, it's now the #1 best-selling Christmas book on Amazon right this moment. Congratulations, Raymond. But before we get to the book, a few words about our author. This evening, we are welcoming back to the Reagan Library Raymond Arroyo, the internationally known journalist, producer, and New York Times bestselling author. A Fox News contributor and often a host, he's also the founding news director, managing editor, and lead anchor for EWTN News. I know you know the program. It's seen in more than 350 million homes on 6 continents and heard on the radio throughout the United States. Raymond's visit this evening is a timely one. He comes to us with the book about Christmas while we at the Reagan Library are hard at work preparing a terrific new Christmas exhibit. It will feature Christmas trees from all of our 50 states, and I know it is exactly the kind of exhibit that President Reagan would really enjoy. When it comes to Christmas, President Reagan himself had some wise words to the nation one year in office that I think applies here. He said, and I quote, "The joy and meaning of Christmas only deepens as we grow older. The true beauty and wonder of the season lies in the Christmas spirit of giving of ourselves to others. At Christmas time, we accompany shepherds and wise men to the stable as of old, where we return the timeless and priceless lessons of love, humility, and sacrifice." Speaking of wise men, we are honored that Raymond chose the Reagan Library as the first stop of his book tour. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the Reagan Library, Mr. Raymond Arroyo.
What a pleasure. I'm over here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all. So nice of you to come. Thank you. What a treat. I thought John had retired, and then when I heard he was interviewing me, I said, he came out of retirement to do this interview. That's better than the book tour. Pretty good.
Yeah.
And should I explain my
Oh, please,
laid-back
please.
garb for a second?
Please.
I had a beautiful red tie and a shirt that I ironed before I left. I had my whole outfit picked out. I took the suit, I took the shoes, I took the belt. I forgot the shirt. So I'm very California tonight, girls and boys. Sorry. Oh, you don't have ties on either. Why? We don't need we need all that blood flow for tonight, John.
I promise you, Raymond, this audience is very California too. Okay. That's right. Reagan country, she said. That's right. Raymond, okay, here's one of my favorite passages from the Bible, Matthew 28, 18 to 20. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations. I wonder, when you write books like this, do you see yourself spreading the word, as it were, in the modern day?
Well, I'll tell you, my first obligation when I start any project is, who am I writing it for? And I try to write for a particular audience. And I always ask myself before I start, because there are lots of ideas that come to me, and there's no audience for those works, or I don't see it yet, or I haven't figured the story out. So my first obligation is to entertain my audience, and I write with them in mind. Certainly, in the dark times that we find ourselves in. And I have been asked to write any number of books about politics, the other religious figures I won't mention, lots of people that, frankly, I consider a drag. I don't need to contribute to the darkness of the world. I'm trying to bring something with hope, and I hope some inspiration. And for me, when I started researching this story, because I wrote a book a few years ago called The Spider Who Saved Christmas, which is just an old Eastern European legend. I dug it out, I refashioned it. You were kind enough to have me here then. So that was kind of a legend that I think casts new light on one of the cracks in the gospel. It's kind of a quiet moment that we just don't know what happened between the child being born in Bethlehem and then the flight to Egypt. What happened in between there? That story kind of illuminates what might have happened. But in the case of the wise men, when I started researching them, John, everything I imagined I knew was wrong. It historically did not line up. How many wise men do you think there were? 3? No. Gospel mentions 3 gifts, not 3 wise men. Gospel is silent on the number of wise men. So right there, I went, wait a minute, I thought there were 3 of these guys. Well, there are Coptic manuscripts that say there were 60 wise men. The Syrians and Armenian, those churches believe there were 12 wise men. So I kind of split the difference. I have 12 in the opening spread of this, with 3 leads that you care about. When you dig in, you realize, you mentioned it in the intro, it's important that we reconnect to the reality of what this was about. And I thought if the Gospel of Matthew begins with these wise men, there had to be a reason that he's the only gospel that starts with it. The wise men don't appear in any other gospel, just Matthew. Why? Why are they there? What are they meant to convey? And who were they? Were they historic? So those were the questions I began with, and it took me 8 months to kind of unravel who they were, what they meant, and then once I saw it all, I said, oh, this is an adventure story. This is a buddy film. And it's high stakes, and it's dangerous, and they're taking their lives into their hands, and they're pursuing truth recklessly in some cases. And I think that relates to all of us. It's a pursuit of truth, no matter where it leads. That's the lesson of the wise men. But I originally was going to write this as a chapter book, and as I did that, I said, but I'm cutting the audience down. The families gather around this story every year. I want to open it up to 104-year-olds and 4-year-olds. So how do I do that? Picture book. That was it. So that's how we came up with this platform to convey what is actually a very complex and fascinating story to me.
Is it that, the average person, we 3 kings of Orient are?
Right.
I wonder, is it because this tale is, in particular, is caught up with all these fictional elements that you thought you should go after this one?
Well, I thought I was going to write a story about 3 kings from 3 different kingdoms who went to see the Christ child and brought him gold and frankincense and myrrh, right? We 3 kings of Orient are. We all know the song. Turns out the song is completely wrong. There are not 3. They were not kings, and they did not come from the Far East. They are from the Orient, but what does Orient mean? East. The immediate East. When you read Clement of Rome and Justin Martyr, 1st century, they all say the wise men came from Arabia. What was the capital of Arabia at the time? Current-day Petra, the kingdom of Nabateh. Well, I'm already hooked. I thought, oh God, the kingdom of Nabateh. I love it. Let's go. Where's Nabateh? Who are these people? So when you start digging, it all kind of falls into place. And then once I understood the political ramifications, I realized it was an adventure. And there are dangerous turns. There may have been a religious compulsion on the part of these wise men, these magi. We can discuss that in a little bit. I don't think they just went to bring gifts to a child. There's something far more profound happening here. And once I figured that out, I had to all I want to do with this is tell a fascinating, fun tale for the family that opens up the possibilities of who these guys were. Look, some of this is theoretical, and I'll be very honest with the things I think are theoretical. But what's historic, we have to mark and set so people understand where they came from, why they were going to this child, and what they meant to accomplish. And I just think it speaks to all of our lives. As I pull back from the story, John, I thought, we don't pursue God so much as God pursues us. And that's what happens with these wise men. It's through their natural passions. It's through their natural desires, the things that fascinated them, the stars and the prophecies. It's through those things that he reached them and moved them to action. We're all called in the same way, right now. We're all called through the things we love, the things we're naturally drawn to, the things our heart rests on. He pursues you through those. And I love the allegory of the star, which is there. They follow the star, and then it goes out. Then they're in the darkness, and they have to go on faith through much of the journey. And then way down the path, they reach Bethlehem, and the star reappears. What was it? What did they see? All of that we can speculate on forever. There's 1,000 theories. The most important thing is they had their eyes always looking up. They were beyond the things of the world, the earthly things. They were looking for the unseen. A little product placement, seen and unseen there, but they're always looking for the unseen. And we have to keep our gaze on the higher things, because otherwise these lower things will drag you down and destroy you. And you'll miss your calling.
I knew you would bring it. He always brings these tales alive. It's just...
You're sweet. Thank you.
You talk about this book being a book for family, a book for children. Christmas is a time for children. Is that why you chose to speak through the animals that were, an animal was narrating this book?
Don't give away spoilers, John. That's the big reveal in the last spread. You're already telling the whole book. That's like saying who did it on the Nile. No, we don't want to know. Let Perot figure it out.
Now, I didn't say which animals.
Yes.
But children love it when animals talk.
Look,
right?
I'm trying to, when I write, an editor friend of mine gave me a quote years ago, and she said, when you write, you really write like L. Frank Baum. L. Frank Baum wrote The Wizard of Oz. And I said, why do you say that? I don't write about lions or tin men. She said, no. L. Frank Baum said, I write for the young and the young at heart. And I do write for the young and the young at heart. I'm writing for a couple of audiences here. The child today and that child when he's grown. And I figured that out when I became a parent because, as you parents get misty-eyed thinking about it, the stories of childhood particularly, when you return to them as a grown-up child, now I'm going to cry, When I read Peter Pan to my kids, I wept through the whole end of the book. Every time I read it, I wept to them. And I'm like, and I kept asking myself, why are you getting so emotional about this book? Well, my mother read Peter Pan to me. She took me to see Sandy Duncan in the production when it came to the Sanger Theater.
Me too. Me too.
And there's a very sweet memory I have of, and again, it's all of this. Book stories, good stories, they capture not only a piece of our heart when we're young, but they gather up memories of that time and they hold them. And when you go to them again, they're reopened. And that's the beauty of holidays and Christmas stories. So I take all of this very seriously when I write it.
Yeah.
And I'm writing for different levels. There are going to be people who connect with Melchior, who has a side ailment and is still, despite his infirmity, is racing toward the light. And his line throughout the book is, we have to follow the light. But we have to follow the light. And the other guys think he's out of his mind. But that's what his calling is. He won't let it go. And I just think it's important to reach the entire family if you're writing for them. And I am. I'm writing for multiple levels. And I love that families share these books with each other, because Mama and Grandma will have a different take that they can share with the child, and that child often has a very different take that opens up and broadens the story we think we're receiving. And you see it anew through their eyes. That's the beauty of writing for, they say children. I write family reads. I don't write for children. I write for little kids and bigger kids. Wiser kids.
I won't grow up.
I won't. Well, you will grow up, but hopefully you won't lose the kid.
Yeah.
You know, like my friend Jerry Lewis, he used to always say, to Jerry, I would say, Jerry, how old are you inside? He said, I'm about 5. And then he was 15. But there was that kid inside of him that he kind of kept alive. We have to keep that child alive. We should keep that child alive. And through wonder and a sense of awe, and that I tried to weave in. And I got to tell you, the whole reason, if you really want to know the reason I wanted to do it as a picture book, it's this one spread. It's this one. And it's the first time you'll see the wise men on Arabian horses racing through the desert. I just loved this idea. Arabian horses were introduced about 100 years before Christ in this kingdom of Nabateh. There's a good reason they raised Arabians. But they would have ridden Arabians, not camels. Camels were for heavy packing and moving, big articles of trade. If you needed to get somewhere fast, you took the Maserati of the day. This was it. So I just love that they're all on horseback. So it's kind of it gives it a sense of urgency and life and zest that the solemn procession of the kings and the clumpy camels never appealed to me. I never liked that story, I have to tell you. And I always wondered, who are these guys?
Well, these merchants of trade, and as well at the time, when I was a child and was introduced to this story, and you hear this gold and frankincense and myrrh. What are these things? We know what gold is. And
yeah.
What is myrrh?
What is myrrh? Do you know? A spice. Yeah. Well, it's an anesthetic. They put myrrh on the sponge to give to Christ when he was on the cross. It's mentioned in the New Testament. So yeah, it's an anesthetic. So it's medicinal, but it has another purpose. And frankincense, of course, is just incense, which was burned throughout the Roman world because people stank. Look, if everybody smells bad, you light the potpourri. You got to fan it around and hope it covers it up. But there's a wonderful woman. I'm so glad you raised the gifts, because the gifts are huge clues for us as to the origins of these wise men. There was only one place, in the entire Eastern world at the time, Middle East, where these 3 articles were not only produced, but that the kingdom controlled the trade routes, the spice routes. That would be the kingdom of Nabateh, current-day Petra. They had all the spice routes. Myrrh and frankincense are tree resin. They are extracted from tree sap. Well, those trees only grow in Arabia. So if you're from the Far East, you're from Africa, you don't have frankincense and myrrh. This is where they came from. They came from Petra, modern-day Petra. The other thing that the kingdom controlled is the famous, infamous gold mines of Solomon, also called the mines of Midian. They were the ones who controlled that gold. But there's an interesting other take here, and I found this in my research. And again, this is implied in the book. It is not set in stone. There are two theories of who these wise men, magi, may have been. And a magi is, they're soothsayers, they're readers of dreams, they're astrologers, they are mathematicians, they are of a priestly caste, maybe Zoroastrian, which were the Eastern priests from Persia. The Zoroastrians they believed in a savior, by the way, that was to come. They were obsessed with lunar cycles, but so were the first temple Jewish priests, the so-called royal priesthood of Jerusalem, the order of Melchizedek. You Catholics will remember that name. It's mentioned in the Mass every week.
Yep.
The order of Melchizedek. Now, the members of the order of Melchizedek was that first temple priesthood. They were expelled. The first temple priests were expelled 700 years before Jesus. Where did they go? Arabia. In exile in Arabia, very likely in Petra, and their descendants became consuls and counselors to the king there, King Aretas, who appears in the book. So whether they were Zoroastrian priests or Jewish priests, I believe they had that pedigree because they would have been focused on both the lunar cycles and the Jewish prophecies of a Messiah. The cool thing about the gifts, and I'm really condensing this, is a wonderful woman, Margaret Barker. I interviewed her. I'm doing a Fox Nation special, digging deep into all of this. So it's kind of a companion to this. So if you can't get enough, we'll give you the full story. Margaret Barker is an amazing woman who reads like 13 ancient and dead languages. She is translating the Jordan codexes, which are these lead books found a few years ago. She's translating them page by page. She's incredible. Margaret has a theory, and others share it, that these first temple priests, their descendants, are living in Petra. They are the wise men and the magi. They see the confirmation in the sky that a king is to be born in Judea. They go to their king and ask him to go see him. They take these gifts. Why the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh? The gold, Philo of Alexandria, 1st century, a contemporary of Christ, tells us gold was in the royal vestments of the priesthood, that first temple priesthood. Frankincense was burned in the first temple. And most importantly, and this only happened in the first temple, second temple, it never happened. In the Holy of Holies, the most sacred spot in the first temple, a jar of myrrh was kept, oil. Why? To ordain and anoint new members of the royal priesthood. So, let's just suggest, let's go down the path. When these guys, if they were indeed descendants of that first royal priesthood, holding the ancient ways, and men from the East in Hebrew translates also to men of the ancient times, interesting clue, if they are indeed members of that priestly caste of old Jewish royal priests, when they go to the Christ child, they are not just visiting him and dropping off gifts. They are completing a religious ritual and initiating the final royal priest into the royal priesthood, restoring the first temple. So when Jesus later says, I will destroy this temple and in 3 days I will raise it again, he's the temple. It kind of brings the whole thing full circle, for me at least, and for many others. As we learn more about the Nabateans, this first temple priesthood, it all fits really well. So it's a working theory. It's a good working theory, I think.
How much, the Persians, Greeks at the time of Christ, how much astral knowledge existed?
Well, you're right to point out there were different schools of astral knowledge. I've come across evidence. The first temple, the roof of the first temple in Jerusalem had astrological charts on them. So they were very aware of the power of the skies and that there were messages there. But there's the Greek school, there's the Babylonian school. Here's the neat thing about Nabateh. Now, the kingdom of Nabateh, because it was a trade center and they had incredible aqueducts, they could bring water out to the desert. That's why they could have a working city there. They were genius. It was a trade center, and like New Orleans, a melting pot. Anytime you have a port city, you have a very large Jewish population, but you have Greeks, you have Persians, you have all these other influences that are mixing and mingling in. So they probably had a pretty refined sense of these astrological events, informed by separate schools of thought on them. But what they saw in the sky, that's another matter.
Yeah, then I want to ask you on these astrological events.
Yeah.
So in reality, what was the Star of Bethlehem?
There are 1,000 theories. The one that I lean toward, I interviewed some astrologers, a Cambridge scientist who's weighed in on this. One school is that it's Jupiter in the constellation of Aries. Jupiter being a kingly sign, Aries pointing to Judea. Okay, that's how they interpreted it. Okay. Another is that it was 3 separate astrological events. A cluster of planets, a comet at the end that led them to Bethlehem, and the timeline fits for some of these events. There were these big astrological events in 6 BC, 3 BC. Yes, there were things in the neighborhood. But as I say, what they saw is less important than the fact that they were looking, they were seeking, they were searching for something beyond what they had in front of them. And whatever it was, it convinced them that they had to get on horses and go see and find this child now. And that kind of mad passion I loved, because there are multiple things going on here. And again, I only suggest this in the story. There's a heft of the political background in the story. But Herod was a killer. Herod was a murderous killer. What I didn't know is he had murdered, before our story starts, Herod had already murdered 3 of his sons and a wife to protect his throne. So when these 3 dudes show up on horseback with their gifts and say, hey, where's the new king of Judea? Herod's head explodes. He's looking for the knives. Where is he? Where's the kid? I'm the king. Where's the kid? Well, they don't know where he is. And that's why he has to call his priests and say, come here, come here. Where would this kid be born? And then he tells them what? Go and find the child, and when you find him, call me. I'll come worship him too. And the king of Nabateh would fully understand the murderous intents of Herod. Herod's mother was a Nabatean princess, so they were kin. And more than that, I didn't know this, 30 years before the start of this story, Nabateh is invaded by Herod. They're right next door to each other. So there was a lot of tension between these 2 kingdoms. So when the wise men come and tell the king, there's a new king being born in Judea, we think he's a Messiah, he says, okay, fine, take some gifts to him, go make Herod happy, go be nice, we can mend fences here. So there's a political mission they're on, but there's a religious component underneath it for them. And I love the idea of that double, because that's how life is. It's never one thing. It's 2 or 3 things you're doing at the same time. It's never as pat as, oh, they followed the star. Star went out. Star goes out in the middle of the trip. So they had to have something more than the star.
And then is there I think maybe you represented this pictorially, but so the light beams up from up to the heavens.
Yes. That's a little flourish of mine, I admit. We all take little liberties. There's a neat portion of the book where when they get to the house, they realize the light is not coming down from the star, but up from the house. Now, there's a little theological thing there. Benedict XVI wrote a beautiful book about the Nativity. In the middle of it, he says, the star does not guide the child or direct the child is directing the star. And I kind of liked that idea so much that we represent it in the picture. We kind of imply it other places, but in the illustration, it's very clear. But I love that idea. And it's amazing how children pick up on the visuals. You know, they're seeing all the little things, the falcon and the horse and the way the star falls and the baby. They see all these little details that the adults miss. But what I love about picture books is you really can tell the story on multiple levels. I mean, it's really like a little movie that you control the pacing of. But you want to tell that story. There's a lot of language I pulled back. You know, I edited a lot out because Diane is such a beautiful illustrator that I said, well, you can tell this better. And she did. So all the description of Herod I threw out because her Herod is so monstrous and fat and sloppy and horrible. I said, let's just leave her, let the picture do the talking. Yeah, look, I love him. Oh, he's such a big, he's not a happy guy. You don't want to go in front of Herod. Yeah. So but it's neat. It just changes our perception of a story we took for granted. And that's really what I try to do, no matter what I'm writing. You want to kind of shake up expectations or broaden your thinking about a topic. I will never look at those 3 guys under the tree again the same way. Never. I want them all on horseback. I want to get the crowns taken off their heads, and I want at least 9 more surrounding them. Mm-hmm. I'm lobbying.
There is likely 1 or 2 in our audience tonight, Raymond, who I want to write a children's book. I want to write a children's book. You know?
Yes.
What is your advice to those that believe they have it within them to write such a book, to actually make it come true?
You can do it. First of all, it depends on who are the children you're writing for? Because I've written middle grade, I still have a series at Random House I'm starting again. We've done 3 of them, I'm writing the 4th. The Will Wilder series, which is a middle grade, Harry Potter-esque, he's my little adventurer. Will Wilder sees things others cannot. And on his 12th birthday, the shadows he's been seeing throughout childhood take crystallized form, and we realize he has a very important function in his family, and they've been waiting decades for this kid to arrive. Will falls into all kinds of misadventures, but it's a fun series. But you're writing that for 8 to 14-year-olds, and I write for my older crowd. But that's primarily the audience. This is geared to a younger audience, but I never play down to an audience, and that would be my big piece of advice. You don't write down to children. They're far from simple. They're far more complex than adults are. They see things and are sensitive to things, particularly the big things, the nature of good and evil, the beautiful and ugly things at play in the world. Children are very sensitive to that. So you write from that level for them. But I think you have to make a good yarn. You have to spin a good yarn. The audience has no obligation to read your work. None. I don't assume they do. You have to hook them and hold them. And I try to create a lot of cliffhangers in the middle grade books because I've got to get boys to read and keep reading, and that's hard. Video games. Watching my sons play video games helped me with that. Because those video games all have cliffhangers. If you want to move the story forward, you've got to play through a level, and then it stops, and the story continues. So I thought, well, I've got to kind of use that in a middle grade book and drop cliffhangers throughout so they keep reading. And you leave them hanging everywhere, so they constantly have to keep going to figure out, because everybody wants to know what happened.
Yeah.
But I think that sensitivity to kids is important. And the shape of it, again, this book, a picture book, makes certain demands on you. You have to underwrite, and each flip is a reveal. So sometimes you let the pictures do the talking, and you don't have to write as much. But so it's an odd, this is a hard form, I have to tell you. This is harder than a novel, for me. This is far harder, because you're collaborating with somebody, you're having to pull back, you change the story sometime. In the spider book, when she spins the golden web on the front of the cave, we just did a whole spread for that. So we see her working through the night, you turn it, wow, there it is, the whole golden spread with the spider in the middle. So you let the audience, it's a little bit like TV. You let the audience fill in the gaps. You don't have to tell them everything. They're smarter than you think. Bad TV and bad books try to scoop everything and feed you, force feed you. I never force feed. It's not worth it. You got to do your part. Why should I do all the work?
Okay. I want to fast forward to the present day. But before I do, because I have some people here are fascinated with you, and I have some questions about you.
I have some questions about them. Wonderful.
So before I leap there, is there anything else you'd like to say about this really?
Only that the whole reason I wrote this story in this way was because I hope when it's over, if we can ground these figures we've taken for granted in reality, and I really wanted to rescue them from fable. They were lost in fable. The names, the three names, Melchior, Balthazar, Casper, the traditional names of these wise men. I kept those names because they're so familiar, but they were created in the 6th or 7th century by Venerable Bede. He just created those names. The names, by the way, just mean king in different languages. Melchior is Hebrew, Kaiser, Casper, Kaiser is German. The other is a dead Semitic language for Balthazar. But they all mean God with the king, the king is protected, and something else about the king. But they're just represented for king. Now, they may have said they were kings because they were members of the royal priesthood, the high priesthood, which makes more sense to me than they were kings. And so I wanted to rescue them from that, and in the doing, I hope, not only do the wise men find Christmas, but we re-find it, situated in a reality not unlike our own. A political reality where strife and death surrounds us, and a hopeful reality where light does not disappear forever. And I thought if I could capture that some way through a story, through a real adventure, that it would pull people in and draw them to this story, and hopefully enrich and deepen a big part of our Christmas celebrations, the wise men. And for New Orleanian, in New Orleans, the Feast of the Epiphany is the beginning of the carnival season. That's when we break out the king cakes, thus king cake. And that runs from the January 6th. I'm trying to redeem January 6th with this book. No more hearings. Wise men. Wise men.
Okay.
Maybe that's my real motivation. And I'll just say this before I end. My friend Amy Sonnen, who's a dear, one of our producers at Fox, been there for 25 years, used to be O'Reilly's producer, great lady, and a Jewish friend of mine. When I told her the thing about the royal priesthood, she said, well, you should have called it the Weissmans who found Christmas. The next edition will be the Weissmans who found Christmas. They ended a Chinese restaurant at the end on Christmas Eve.
I know people can find you and see you in any number of different channels in this world of media. But certainly, I think what most know you from is Fox News. Mm-hmm. How did your relationship with Laura come about? How did you meet? Yeah. And how did the two of you come to the point where you've got the segments that you do?
Well, one night many years ago, I was riding through her neighborhood in D.C., broke into the house and held her hostage for just an hour or two, and I said, let me on your radio show. No, I'd written a biography of Mother Angelica, a woman I worked with and for, who is, Mother Angelica, for those of you who don't know, was the only woman to lead and found a television network, a cable network, for 20 years. And she not only led it, she found it. And she's not only the first woman, she's the first nun to do that. And it's an incredible, untold story. So I told that biography of her, and I went on Laura's show to promote it, 16 years ago. And we did our segment. It was supposed to be 10 minutes. When it was over, she said, can you stay through the next break? We'll keep talking. Okay. So we sat through the next break. She said, why don't you stay to the top of the hour and we'll talk about some other topics if you don't mind. I said, I'm game. Yeah, let's do it. I came from the theater, and in the theater, they always say casting is 98%. Because if you get the right people, it will cover up a multitude of sins. Bad plot, bad camera work, lousy lighting, terrible script. If you have great chemistry, it's the one thing you can't fake. And the thing that irritates me with a lot of television, I will tell you, is the forced friendships. And we've got a lot of forced friendships on TV. And I recoil, I turn them off when I see them, because you can tell these people really hate each other. In the case of Laura and I, we sat opposite each other in the radio studio. It clicked instantly. It was like we were friends forever and brother and sister. I could rib her, she ribbed me back. The timing worked. So I started doing the radio show more regularly, once a week, twice a week. It's like an occupation. You kind of start in one place and then you move, you know. I'm like the Putin and she was Ukraine. I just kept moving in, taking over more segments. No, but I started joining her more on the radio, and then when the TV show came along, she asked me to come help with it, and then, you know, I help produce the segments as well. I work with the executive team, and we, you know, run through the guests and the guest list and the topics for that night. So even though I'm not on air, I'm kind of doing my mischief in the background, stirring pots to make sure things are moving along. And then the show, you know, we found that the show, our segments rated, because it's a different side of Laura. You know, she's fighting it out through all the other segments. It's the one segment she can relax and be Laura. People see that and feel it, and we have a good time. And I think you all have a good time. I hope you have a good time.
Yeah.
It's a fun. You need, and you know, initially there was a lot of people were not quite sure that it would work in the middle of a show. They always wanted you to do that at the end of the show. You can do something light at the end of the show. Well, no, I said, I think people need a breather at 10 o'clock. And they need it in the middle of the show. And if you can lift them up and give them a laugh, they'll stay for the last segment. And that's what happens. So it worked, thank God.
And do the two of you collaborate on what topics you've decided to bring to the show?
We no longer talk, John. No. But our assistants meet each other in the hallway. No. Yeah, we talk every day. I mean, we talk every day. The segment, I will tell you, I'll give you one little secret. Though we have a call in the afternoon every day and run through the show. So, and you know, sometimes I'll go, oh, we should get this one for that, or I don't like that guest, why don't you try this one? And she'll say, no, stick with that. When we get to my segment, I only give her the very scantest amount of information. And I do that because it's a little bit like, you know, I told you, I came from the theater. When you direct, there are certain performers you have to walk them through everything. I am one of those people. I like to know everything. What comes next? What's the sequence? Where's the table? How do I come in? What's the line? Where do I land? I like to know all of that so I can situate it in my mind. Laura is a far more instinctive performer, and she's better without rehearsal. So I don't tell her a lot of what we're doing that night. So the reactions you're getting are honest, which is why sometimes, this is the bad part, sometimes she'll double over with laughter, and I'm stuck. We got to move the segment along. We got a commercial coming, and she's dying in the chair. Yeah. But as I said, you have to know, I understand what the segment is there for. We inform. I try to inform and bring new information, which is hard at 10 o'clock. Something new, something that relates to your lives or to politics or to what we're going through. Something that's funny, that we can satire, have a good time with. And I want to surprise her. So those are kind of what I'm trying to do each night. Once you try to do it. You can't surprise her all the time. But every now and then, it works.
I know you've got your show on Fox Nation. You're doing so many other things. But when are my good friends at Fox News going to wake up and decide, you know, Raymond needs to have his own hour on Fox News? And if they, and would you want that? Would you want that, Raymond?
Well, look. It's a lot. I'm already doing one show 5 days a week, and I've got my other show at EWTN. I mean, It's a lot. It's a lot. I'd have to look at it. I'd have to look at it and see. Also, look, shows, yes, you have to build a show around a personality, but you have to know how that, I'm a big believer when I write, when I'm working on bigger projects, a sense of the whole is important. How does this serve the whole mission here? How does that show lift or propel what's to come or is different from what was? I don't like same. I'm in my heart, I'm a variety performer. I like variety. I like to mix it up. I like new things. I don't like to, so I wouldn't want to like re-grill the same old stories we've been cooking for all week. That's not my style. If we could do something original and fresh and fun and would serve the audience, I would be happy to do it. But you got to look, you have to look at priorities. How much bandwidth do you have? I mean, I do have a wife and 3 kids I'd like to kind of hold on to.
Sure.
You know, and that is, you know, you have to make time for them too, you know, or everything goes sideways, and that's not worth it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? But yeah, I mean, I'm doing plenty though, and I'm happy doing what I'm doing.
Very good. I would like to ask our audience to see if you've got any questions
Mass
for Raymond.
interrogation.
He's not here that often, so I definitely want to do that for several minutes. So if you would, we have people with microphones that I'd love to put in your hand. If you could come forward.
They're so polite. Look, this lady right
Going
here.
right
here.
here.
The man in front. Well, let's the ladies first.
Let's start here, yeah.
Hello.
You're
Stay
second,
here?
I promise.
Hello, thank you so much.
Hi.
I'm so excited to meet you.
Oh, you're very sweet.
I'm from New Orleans, and we had met on Twitter because I played Mary Madeline. And
Oh, of course.
I have a letter for you.
In the Vice movie,
Yes,
I
yes.
see you now.
I'm so excited.
She played my friend Mary Madeline. Mary Madeline and James Carville, too. I don't want to leave James out. We are friends. We don't kill each other. And we shared a box at the Saints games, and we have our posse that came together, and you played Mary in
Yes.
the Vice movie.
And I just found out I'm related to James Carville, which is totally surreal to me.
Wow.
Totally. I wanted to ask you, well, first I wanted to compliment you because you make me laugh all the time, thank God. And you come from the theater. I didn't know that. I have a master's in theater from UNO.
Oh, wow.
And I wanted to thank you for this book. I'm so excited to read it because I actually also am a UFO expert. I wrote for UFO magazine, and my husband is a professional astrologer. So I'm a mess. I'm a Catholic going to Latin Mass, married to an astrologer who believes in UFOs, and I just came from a UFO conference. So
Wow.
I think you've written. the
And you're related
perfect-
to James Carville.
Yes, and I think. And I think
We won't hold that against you now. Come on, we're not going to hold that against you. You're
But-
fine. You're fine.
I'm so excited about the book, and I can't wait to read
Thank
it
you.
because I think you have created the perfect children's book for my house, even though my son is 20 now.
Okay.
We're gonna have to all.
There are no UFOs in the book, however.
I'm just
None that
saying.
well,
But there is UFO disclosure happening. There's a big report due out October 31st or sooner, and I'm reading a book by Paul Thigpen.
Yes.
That's published by TAN. That is about the Catholic examination of the UFO, possible reality of beings and all that.
I've heard of that book.
So
yeah.
if you didn't do UFO research for the book, that's fine. But do you have any thoughts on that related to the Star of Bethlehem?
Well, I think the star is probably an astral event or an astrological event. I do. I have so much trouble with human beings. Aliens are way, way above my pay grade. Except some of the people I encounter might be aliens, but it's really outside. I'm so trying to make sense of what we've already done. I don't have the bandwidth to worry about UFOs. I'm leaving that to you and James Carville entirely.
Okay.
Thank you. So great to see you.
Right here in the front.
Yes, sir. Oh, wait, microphone. Phil Donahue. I would come do it myself.
I don't need a microphone, trust me.
Okay.
So an hour show every day would be a lot. But how about a Saturday or a Sunday show like Lawrence and the others have?
You all are making this pitch for me. I did right to Fox. I'm just toting that barge and lifting that bale. That's all I'm doing. I'm just doing my thing. 3 days a week is fine. And I'm popping I do Harris Faulkner show. I do the weekend show, the big Saturday, big Sunday shows. I do Jesse's show. I got plenty. I mean, yeah, it is, I'm telling you. It would be a delight. I'd do something radically different than anybody else is doing, I will tell you, if I would do that. But maybe a weekend show would really be the only bandwidth left for me. A daily show is awfully hard. You really have to dedicate yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Story time with Grandpa Ray.
I think what they're saying, Raymond, is that if you forego a number of these other opportunities,
Yes.
stitch it all into one, you
Yeah.
can really tell.
Okay, John.
Right,
John's
it's
going to be my
inspiring.
agent.
That's
now.
right. And,
I'll give you the number of the
Okay.
headquarters.
we over here in the front.
It's just a little comment and
Okay.
maybe something for you to use because I'm sure you're on a California book tour.
Well, a little mini California book
Okay,
tour.
you talked about the king and how smart he was with the aqueduct through the desert.
Yes.
And I thought maybe you could relate that to Gavin and maybe he could get some information about that.
Now that is the most helpful suggestion yet. I'm going to go do a book signing at Newsom's house. Yeah, all about aqueducts. All about aqueducts. They did find a way to get water into the desert continuously, but I'm sorry, you got the 405 and the 10, and getting the aqueducts over it could be a problem.
Yeah.
But
Right over here.
great suggestion, though.
Over here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I think what everyone is kind of encouraging you, sir, or really feeling, and I know that my wife and my 10-year-old and our family, we make it a point to watch you.
Oh, you're very.
We really do, because you are funny. You're talking about things that it's sort of, you said you don't want to talk about the same.
I don't.
You talk about the same differently, all right? So you're offering something to all of us, which is like, hey, we want more of you than we probably get in these segments with Laura.
Yeah.
And that's really the only thing I wanted to say to you is thank you, because you are giving us something that we're getting differently but the same. So I think
You're
that's
very
great.
kind.
Thank you.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you. Not the mic.
Right over here. Over here.
We try. We'll see. We'll see. You know, I'm a big believer in providence. Providence opens doors you don't expect, throws obstacles in you the way you didn't want, but it gets you to the place you're supposed to go. And you field those opportunities when they come in the present moment. So we'll see. But yeah, look, I'd be happy to do more, but it would have to be something very particular. And I kind of, you have to also, there's nothing worse than an opera singer doing Broadway. It doesn't work. Or a country star doing opera. It just, you got to know your lane. And after all these years, 28 years, I think I know my lane well. So you'd have to find a form to hold that.
Yeah, well said.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Raymond, two things. One, I think what it is this gentleman just said is you do bring something different at the end of the day, your smile.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you. Yeah. Well, now there's a whole horror movie dedicated to my smile.
Yeah.
Did you see that horror movie?
The second thing is,
They've even turned the smile upside down. Now a smile is death to all of you. What culture does that? Only us. Go ahead.
the second thing is, okay, we know about television, radio, and writing.
Yes.
What do you love?
What do I love? What do you mean? Bring the microphone
Is
down.
there a preference?
No, I mean, I actually, the truth of the matter is, I mean, because of my foundations, I love the theater. I love live performance. If I could, I'd just do this. I'd just do live crowds. But you know, it's one handles the other. You need, you know, TV is how you reach people. So I enjoy it, but it is a grind. And I do. You know, the one thing, now you all are going to be, some of you are going to wrinkle your nose when I say this. I'm going to compliment Barbra Streisand. Don't leave. Don't leave. Barbra Streisand has done something brilliantly. She comes out with one project a year, and like groundhogs, she hides all year round, pops up once a year, and goes away. There's mystery around Barbra Streisand. She doesn't overexpose herself, and therefore wear out her welcome. And that's why when you ask me, well, you should do a show a week, you should do 3 shows a week, you should do 4. You know, you can tire people out. And I don't want to ever overstay my welcome. You got to know when to leave. And I think in timing, you know, there's something delicious about being on 3 days a week. Because those are my hit times. People know when they are. They turn up for it. We see that. I like to be appointment television, but I don't like to have to carry the whole show. That's a good thing, too. But I love informing people. I love entertaining people, whether it's through books or in person. And I feel called to do that. But we can't, Angela Lansbury, whom I knew a little bit, just died. And there was a great quote. And she said, "There is such joy to be found bringing humor and light to an audience. Believe me," she said, and I do. She's right. There is great joy there in that mutual giving. And that's a rare thing in life, to be able to touch many people and lift them and give them something to laugh about or unburden their load for a little bit and inform them about important things. And when you can do that at the same time, it's more powerful. Because if I can get you laughing, I can teach you and share a lot of what I've learned. And there's no blockade left. You're very open. And that's part of what I do too. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Giving away like David Copperfield showing you how the tricks are done. Sorry. But thank you.
We have time for just about 2 more questions.
I have something special to share with you,
Uh-oh.
Raymond. Well, thank you for coming tonight. 2 weeks ago on your World Over on EWTN, you highlighted a group of Carmelite sisters
Oh, yeah.
who were recording a CD in St. Joseph's Chapel.
Yes.
I live a block from St. Joseph Chapel
In Alhambra?
Duarte. Yeah, they're in Alhambra, but they also, they had a hospital for many years, which basically closed, and now it only serves the elderly. But the nuns, we have a walking trail, equestrian trail, that starts at Santa Teresita. That's where they are, Santa Teresita, the St. Joseph Chapel. And the nuns take their walks.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me they ride Arabian horses. I was suddenly intrigued.
I'll have to find out. But that's where I walk my dog. And for the last 40 years, I've run into the sisters walking
They're dear
along there.
nuns.
But yeah, I'm familiar with that chapel. And when I saw them on TV, I thought, oh, this is awesome.
They're great.
But yeah, they're in Duarte. And we also have the world-famous City of Hope Cancer Research Hospital there.
Right.
So, so I'm blessed. I have the Carmelites down the street.
Oh, thank you.
Because they still wear their habits.
They do. Old school, and they have vocations because of
But they sing so beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They are. They're adorable.
This back here,
There's a lady over there, too.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Ray.
Hi.
There's been some great seen and unseen clips. I'm curious, does one stand out as the most outrageous one
Outrageous.
that you recall?
Well, the most outrageous might have been I thought I was looking at clips. I didn't know what. You bet your life. What's happening? The most unexpected, one night, and we kind of riffed on it the other night. One night we were talking about Yellowstone being denied the Emmy. No one nominated it for anything, but it was the most watched scripted show anywhere. 40 million people watching the show. So I did this little segment. And while I was on the plane, I had remembered my wife telling me, because she watches the show, I've never seen it, this You show on Netflix. So I said, well, I'll do a little riff of Who's on First thing with you. So I said, Laura, there's this other show. Remember, there's this show, You, and they featured vaccines. And she says, I never featured vaccines on this show. No, not you, the show You.
Oh.
I'm not you. I don't know. There's no show me. There's a real me, Raymond. And we did this thing, but Laura didn't rehearse it with me before. We didn't rehearse it. And I thought the timing was off, and I was not happy when it was over. I said, well, that went over like a lead balloon. And I went home and drove home. And the next morning, my phone is exploding, because this thing landed on TikTok and Instagram. We had like 70 million views of this. I have children, little girls, stopping me in airports. Are you the You guy? Can I take a picture? So this is what I'm known for, a Who's on First knockoff. But none of us expected that would do anything, and it exploded. So sometimes you just don't know.
Yeah.
And thank God for young ignorance. They'd never seen Abbott and Costello, so we're it.
Well, let me thank God that you visited with us this evening. Thank you so, so much, Raymond. It's just been
Thank
an
you,
honor
John.
and a privilege to have you, and we're just so pleased to have you back at the Reagan Library.
Well, I
Thank you.
love being here. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Raymond.
The honor is mine. So we'll sign books, I guess.
Yes. Now we
Okay.
sign books.
Thank you all.